The flight that changed everything. The hum of the private car was steady as it weaved through the bustling streets of New York, heading towards the prestigious Skypoint International Airport. The city's skyline gleamed in the distance, reflecting the golden hues of the evening sun. Inside the luxury vehicle, Olivia Bennet sat poised, scrolling through her tablet, reviewing a set of financial reports. Numbers never lied, and neither did she. She was about to close one of the biggest deals of her career, a partnership that would elevate her global holdings to an unprecedented level. Olivia wasn't just a successful businesswoman. She was a force, a self-made billionaire who had carved her empire out of sheer determination and strategic brilliance. Her name was synonymous with financial power, and her presence alone commanded attention. But despite all her achievements, she had long since understood that her success did not grant her immunity from the unspoken prejudices that still lurked in the corridors of wealth and power. Her journey to the airport wasn't just about catching a flight. It was about sealing an exclusive contract with Apex Airways, a deal that would ensure their luxury airline became the preferred choice for Bennet Global Holdings' elite corporate clients. The partnership was worth hundreds of millions, an arrangement that Apex had eagerly pursued for months. Olivia's influence was not just lucrative, it was transformative. As the car pulled up to the private entrance of the Apex Airways VIP terminal, Olivia's driver stepped out to open the door. She emerged, dressed in an impeccably tailored navy blue suit that accentuated her silhouette, her sleek heels clicking against the pavement. In one hand, she carried her leather handbag, and in the other, her platinum VIP membership card, a card that granted her unrestricted access to the most elite services Apex Airways had to offer. The entrance to the lounge was framed by towering glass doors, reflecting the grandeur within. Olivia stepped inside, her presence naturally commanding attention. The space was a symphony of quiet luxury, polished marble floors, high-end leather seating, and an aroma of fresh espresso mingled with the subtle fragrance of imported orchids. A pianist played softly in the background, providing a melody that was both sophisticated and calming. Her entrance was met with fleeting glances from well-dressed executives and socialites, but Olivia paid no mind to the silent assessments. She had spent her entire career walking into rooms where people doubted her. Rooms where old money and privilege believed they alone dictated who belonged. But Olivia never asked for permission. She took her place, and the world adjusted accordingly. She approached the check-in counter, where a young man in a perfectly pressed uniform stood behind the sleek reception desk. His name tag read Daniel. "Good evening, ma'am," he greeted, his tone polished but cautious. "May I see your membership card?" Without a word, Olivia handed him the sleek black platinum card, embossed with her name in silver lettering. He took it, scanned the screen in front of him, and then paused. The pause was subtle, but Olivia noticed. It was the kind of hesitation that had become all too familiar. "One moment, please," he said, his fingers hovering over the keyboard before he glanced sideways. He excused himself, stepping away from the counter without explanation. Olivia didn't move. She had seen this play out before. Her gaze remained composed, but her mind sharpened like a blade. She watched as Daniel walked toward a woman in an impeccably fitted uniform, a woman whose presence exuded authority. Her name tag read Madeleine Harper. Madeleine's eyes flickered toward Olivia, her expression coolly unreadable. She took the membership card from Daniel and ran her fingers over its embossed letters, as if testing its authenticity. Then, with a composed but condescending smile, she approached the counter. "Miss Bennet," she began, her voice professional but detached. "I'm afraid we need to verify your membership before granting access to the VIP lounge." Olivia tilted her head slightly, her expression betraying nothing. "Verify what, exactly?" Madeleine maintained her polished demeanor. "It's a standard security measure. We've had some instances of unauthorized access in recent months." The words were chosen carefully, deliberately. Olivia recognized them for what they were, a veiled attempt to challenge her presence. Standard security measure, Olivia repeated, her voice even. Interesting, because I've been a VIP member of Apex Airways for over 5 years, and I don't recall ever needing to verify my status before. A flicker of something passed through Madeline's eyes, something close to irritation. I understand, Miss Bennett, she said smoothly, but protocol dictates that we conduct these checks when necessary. Olivia smiled, but it wasn't a smile of amusement. It was a knowing smile, the kind that preceded a calculated move. She reached into her handbag and pulled out her phone, her movements precise and unhurried. She scrolled through her contacts until she landed on a name, Nathaniel Price, CEO of Bennett Global Holdings. She tapped the call button. Nathaniel answered on the second ring. Olivia. His tone was alert. Terminate our contract with Apex Airways, Olivia said, her voice unwavering. Effective immediately. There was a sharp pause on the other end before Nathaniel spoke again. What happened? Apex Airways just demonstrated their customer service standards, Olivia replied smoothly, her eyes never leaving Madeline's. I'll explain later. Just make the call. Understood, Nathaniel said without hesitation. I'll handle it. She ended the call and slipped her phone back into her bag. Across the counter, Madeline's professional mask began to crack, the first hints of uncertainty creeping into her expression. You, she started, but Olivia cut her off. Apex Airways just lost a multi-million-dollar contract because of you, Olivia stated calmly. You wanted to verify my presence. Now verify the consequences. The room had gone silent. Every eye in the lounge was now fixed on the unfolding exchange. Executives who had once cast fleeting glances were now openly watching, sensing the weight of what had just happened. Madeline swallowed, her carefully curated confidence faltering. She opened her mouth as if to salvage the situation, but there was nothing left to salvage. The damage was done. Without another word, Olivia picked up her VIP card from the counter, slipping it back into her handbag. Then, with the same quiet power she had walked in with, she turned and left the lounge, never looking back. By the time she reached her private car, the storm had already begun. And this was only the beginning. The price of arrogance. The storm begins. The city skyline blurred past Olivia Bennett as she sat in the back of her Maybach, her posture as composed as ever, yet there was a quiet storm brewing within her. The wheels were already in motion. Nathaniel Price, her most trusted executive, would ensure that the severance of their multi-million-dollar contract with Apex Airways was immediate and absolute. She glanced at her phone, her inbox flooded with messages from her team, industry colleagues, and even high-profile business associates who had already caught wind of the incident. News traveled fast in the corporate world, but Olivia had no intention of letting this situation be reduced to whispers in backrooms. This was bigger than just her. As her driver navigated through the streets, Olivia's mind was already working through the next steps. She knew Apex Airways was built on a foundation of exclusivity, but it had become evident that their definition of exclusivity was rooted in something far more insidious, unchecked arrogance and discrimination masked as protocol. And today, that arrogance had a price, and Olivia Bennett would be the one to collect it. A boardroom on fire. Miles away, inside the glass and steel fortress of Apex Airways corporate headquarters, Gregory Hawthorne, the regional director, stood in his office, gripping the edges of his mahogany desk. The phone call he had just received from Bennett Global Holdings had sent shockwaves through the entire executive floor, effective immediately. That was all Olivia Bennett had said before ending the call, and in those 2 words, millions of dollars vanished into thin air. Gregory's assistant, a sharp-witted woman named Valerie, knocked once before entering, her face unreadable. The board is assembled in the executive conference room. They're waiting for you. He nodded stiffly and straightened his tie before making his way down the hall, where Apex's most powerful executives were already seated around a glass table that overlooked the Manhattan skyline. The tension in the air was palpable. The CEO, Richard Calloway, was seated at the head of the table, his fingers steepled in front of him. Beside him sat the chief of public relations, Miranda Ellis, her face grim as she scrolled through her phone. The moment Gregory entered, Calloway's voice cut through the silence. "Explain." Gregory cleared his throat. "There was an incident with Olivia Bennett at our VIP lounge earlier today." Calloway's gaze sharpened. The Olivia Bennett, the same woman whose company secures billions in financial transactions, the woman who was about to close the biggest contract we've ever had in corporate travel. Gregory hesitated. Yes. A collective exhale rippled across the room. "What happened?" Miranda asked, her voice carrying the kind of restrained panic that only PR professionals understood in moments of crisis. Gregory glanced toward the screen at the end of the table, where security footage had already been queued up. The video played in stark silence. It showed Olivia Bennett approaching the check-in desk, poised, composed, and polite. Then it showed Daniel hesitating, walking away, and Madeline Harper stepping in. The way she scrutinized Olivia's VIP card. The way she condescended. Then, the moment that sealed their fate, Olivia pulling out her phone and making the call. Miranda inhaled sharply. "Tell me this isn't already circulating." One of the analysts, a younger man with nervous eyes, shifted in his seat. It's worse than that." With a few taps on his laptop, he pulled up Twitter. The video was everywhere. #BoycottApex was trending. Retweets from high-profile entrepreneurs, activists, and even celebrities had sent the video into viral overdrive. Comments poured in. "This is why we build our own spaces. You messed with the wrong one. Olivia Bennett isn't just another VIP. She is the industry." Watching a woman wipe out millions in a single phone call with calm precision is the kind of power they fear. The CEO of a major Silicon Valley firm had already tweeted, "Effective immediately, we will be reevaluating our partnership with Apex Airways. We do not align with businesses that fail to treat all clients with the respect they deserve." Miranda looked like she wanted to vomit. Jesus Christ. Richard Calloway's face turned a dangerous shade of red. "Fix this. Now." Gregory clenched his jaw. "Sir, that might not be possible." The woman behind the power. Back in her penthouse, Olivia sat on her balcony, the city lights stretching out beneath her. The air was crisp, carrying the distant hum of New York's sleepless energy. She had seen the reactions online, but she was not surprised. What happened at Apex Airways was not an isolated incident. It was the reality for so many who had been subtly, systematically excluded in spaces where they had every right to belong. She sipped her wine, the cool liquid coating her throat, and reflected on how far she had come. Born and raised in Atlanta, she had watched her mother, a single woman of resilience and quiet strength, work grueling night shifts as a nurse, all while raising Olivia on her own. She had seen the way people dismissed her mother, the way they assumed she was lesser because she wasn't adorned in wealth. And Olivia had decided, at a young age, that she would never allow herself to be at the mercy of anyone's biases. She had earned her first scholarship at 14, got into Harvard Business School at 19, built her first company from the ground up at 25, and by 35, she was one of the most powerful entrepreneurs in the world. Her empire had been built on precision, on strategy. And today, that strategy had cost Apex Airways millions. She would never apologize for demanding respect. Her phone buzzed. A message from Nathaniel. "Nathaniel, stock has dropped 10%. They're in free fall. More corporations are pulling out. We have an offer from Celestial Airways. They want an exclusive contract. What do you want to do?" She smirked. "Olivia, tell them we'll meet tomorrow. Let's see if they know the value of a real partnership." As she set her phone down, a thought crossed her mind. Apex Airways had underestimated her, and now the entire world was watching them pay the price. The collapse of a giant, Apex Airways. The cracks begin to show. The sun had barely risen over Manhattan when the stock market opened, But already, Apex Airways was in turmoil. At exactly 9:30 a.m., the bell rang on Wall Street, signaling the start of a trading session that would be unlike any other for the airline. Investors, rattled by the storm that had erupted overnight, were already offloading shares. Within the first hour, Apex Airways stock had plummeted by 15%, sending shockwaves through the financial sector. On the 42nd floor of the company's glass-walled headquarters, the executive team sat in the boardroom, their faces pale, eyes fixed on the live stock ticker flashing across the screen. The numbers weren't just dropping, they were free-falling. Miranda Ellis, the company's chief of public relations, pressed her fingertips against her temples. "This is a disaster," she whispered. Gregory Hawthorne, the regional director who had been at the center of yesterday's debacle, felt the weight of the crisis pressing down on him. His career was now hanging by a thread. Richard Calloway, the CEO, paced the room like a caged animal. "We need damage control now." Miranda looked up, exhausted. "It's already too late. This isn't just about Olivia Bennett anymore. We're hemorrhaging corporate partnerships. Silicon Valley has completely pulled out. A major law firm just announced they're dropping us. We've lost almost $250 million in projected revenue overnight." $250 million. Calloway nearly choked. "And that's just from corporate partnerships. Our VIP members are canceling their subscriptions. The boycott is real. Social media is ripping us apart." Gregory felt a sinking dread settle in his stomach. "We need to issue an apology," he muttered. Miranda shot him a look that could have cut glass. "You think that will fix this? The world isn't buying weak corporate statements anymore, especially not when there's video evidence of one of our managers treating a global business leader like she didn't belong." Richard Calloway slammed his fist against the table. "Then find something that will fix it." But everyone in the room knew the damage was already done. Olivia Bennett's next move. At exactly 10:00 a.m., Olivia walked into the sleek, glass-paneled headquarters of Celestial Airways, Apex's biggest competitor. Unlike her disastrous experience at Apex, she was met at the entrance by Celestial's CEO, Malcolm Langley himself. "Miss Bennett," he greeted her, extending his hand. "Thank you for coming." Olivia took his hand, her grip firm. "Let's talk business." Malcolm led her to a private conference room, where a team of Celestial's top executives were waiting. "Let's be upfront," Malcolm said as they sat down. "We saw what happened. It was unacceptable. But we also see an opportunity to make things right, not just for you, but for the entire industry." Olivia crossed her legs, watching him carefully. "We're prepared to offer exclusive corporate travel services to Bennett Global Holdings, with guaranteed premium accommodations for all executives under your network, not just as a standard VIP membership, but as a partner in shaping the future of luxury air travel." He slid a contract across the table. Olivia glanced at it. "And what about your customer service policies?" Malcolm didn't hesitate. "Revised immediately. We've implemented new training for our entire staff. Discrimination, implicit or explicit, will have zero tolerance here." Olivia tapped her fingers against the table. "You're willing to publicly back that?" Malcolm's smile was firm. "Not only will we back it, but we're also prepared to announce our partnership today." She studied him, then leaned back in her chair, considering. Celestial was smart. They weren't just trying to poach Apex's biggest client. They were positioning themselves as the new industry leader, and Olivia was the key to that transformation. She glanced at Nathaniel, who sat beside her. He gave a small nod, indicating the contract was airtight. Olivia looked back at Malcolm. "Then you have yourself a deal." The room erupted in applause. By noon, the announcement was everywhere. Celestial Airways secures exclusive partnership with Bennett Global Holdings. Apex Airways faces devastating loss. Social media exploded. The hashtag #ChooseCelestial replaced #BoycottApex. Within hours, thousands of Apex Airways customers switched to Celestial. Apex had made one of the biggest mistakes in corporate history, and Olivia had just sealed their fate. The final blow. At 3:00 p.m., Richard Calloway sat in his office, staring at his phone. Every major investor had called. Every partner had backed out. And now Miranda Ellis stormed into his office with one last piece of bad news. "We just got confirmation," she said, breathless. "The Federal Trade Commission has launched an investigation into Apex Airways." Calloway's face turned ghost white. "For what?" "Systemic discrimination." Gregory Hawthorne, standing behind her, felt his stomach drop. Miranda tossed a printed email onto Calloway's desk. "A group of passengers have come forward with similar complaints. Olivia Bennett's case just blew it wide open." Calloway ran a shaking hand through his hair. "How bad is this?" Miranda's lips pressed into a thin line. "If they find evidence of discriminatory practices, we could face federal penalties, lawsuits, and possible liquidation." Liquidation. The word hung in the air like a noose. Calloway felt it. This wasn't just a PR nightmare. This was the end of Apex Airways as they knew it. And Olivia Bennett. She had just cemented her place in history. The rise of a new era. The final days of Apex Airways. The sun had begun to set over New York City, painting the skyline in hues of amber and violet. But inside the towering headquarters of Apex Airways, darkness had already settled. Richard Calloway, the once untouchable CEO, stood in his office, staring blankly at the reports spread across his desk. The numbers didn't just show losses. They screamed collapse. Since the viral scandal with Olivia Bennett, Apex Airways had lost 22% of its market value in just 48 hours, $480 million in corporate contracts severed overnight. 14,000 first-class members had canceled their elite subscriptions. A growing federal investigation into discriminatory business practices. And now, the board of directors had called an emergency meeting. Calloway knew what that meant. As he made his way to the boardroom, every step felt heavier. Every employee he passed avoided his gaze. There were no friendly nods, no whispered greetings. The tension was suffocating. Inside, the room was packed with Apex Airways top executives, legal advisors, and shareholders. At the head of the table sat George Lancaster, the company's largest investor. His expression was unreadable, but his presence alone spoke volumes. "Take a seat, Richard," Lancaster said smoothly, but there was no mistaking the authority in his voice. Calloway did as he was told. Lancaster leaned forward. "Tell me, Richard, how did you let this happen?" Silence gripped the room. Calloway exhaled sharply, his patience already fraying. It was an unfortunate incident. Unfortunate. Lancaster's voice was razor-sharp. A single phone call from Olivia Bennett erased $500 million from this company. Do you think that's just unfortunate? Miranda Ellis, the head of PR, cut in. "We've issued an official statement." "It's not enough," Lancaster snapped. His cold blue eyes pinned Calloway in place. "This isn't a PR problem anymore. This is the death of our brand." Calloway clenched his fists beneath the table. "We can fix this." Lancaster sat back, shaking his head. "You still don't get it, do you?" "It's over, Richard." Calloway's blood ran cold. "What are you saying?" Lancaster's voice was calm. Too calm. "You're out. Effective immediately." The room fell silent. Calloway's breath hitched. "You can't." "We can." Lancaster's voice was final. "The board has unanimously voted to remove you as CEO." Miranda looked away. Gregory Hawthorne shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Nobody was willing to fight for him. Calloway could feel the walls closing in. Everything he had built, everything he had worked for, gone. But the final blow came when Lancaster tossed a sealed envelope onto the table. "This is a federal subpoena. The government is officially investigating Apex Airways for systemic discrimination. Do you have any idea what that means?" Calloway felt his chest tighten. "If they find evidence of misconduct, Lancaster continued, "We're not just facing lawsuits. We could be forced to shut down." Calloway's world tilted. "Security will escort you out," Lancaster finished. "You have 10 minutes to clear out your office." Calloway's career, his legacy, his power, all gone in an instant. And in the end, it had only taken one woman to bring him down. Olivia Bennet, the woman who changed everything. At that very moment, across the city, Olivia Bennet sat in a conference room at Celestial Airways. Her sharp eyes scanned the final details of the historic partnership contract. Nathaniel Price, her right-hand man, leaned over. "This will officially make Celestial the leading luxury airline in the world." Olivia smiled. "It already is." The CEO of Celestial, Malcolm Langley, lifted his glass to the future of air travel. They toasted, but Olivia knew this was bigger than just a business deal. This was a shift in power. Apex Airways had built its empire on the idea that it was too elite to fail. They had treated her like she was just another passenger. They had thought they were untouchable. They had been wrong. Now, Celestial Airways wasn't just a competitor. It was a symbol of how the industry was evolving. And Olivia, she was the driving force behind it all. The aftermath. A corporate cautionary tale. As the news of Calloway's firing spread, so did the public's reaction. Business analysts called it the most expensive mistake in airline history. Journalists dissected how one moment of arrogance had cost Apex Airways its future. And customers, they made their choice loud and clear. In the weeks that followed, Celestial Airways saw a 400% increase in new elite memberships. Meanwhile, Apex Airways' downfall continued. CEO Richard Calloway resigned in disgrace. The Federal Trade Commission launched a full-scale investigation. Investors pulled out, and the stock continued to nosedive. Apex Airways officially filed for bankruptcy within 3 months. They never recovered. By the end of the year, Apex Airways ceased operations entirely. What was once the gold standard in luxury travel had become nothing more than a cautionary tale. The legacy of Olivia Bennet. As Olivia walked through the doors of Celestial Airways' private jet terminal, she paused for a moment, watching the planes take off in the distance. Nathaniel stood beside her. "You did it." Olivia exhaled slowly, letting the weight of it settle. "I didn't do this alone," she said. Nathaniel smirked. "No, but you were the catalyst." She thought about that. A year ago, Apex Airways had believed they could treat her as if she didn't belong. Now, they didn't even exist anymore. Her power hadn't come from shouting. It hadn't come from demanding recognition. It had come from knowing her worth, and from making sure the world never underestimated her again. She turned to Nathaniel with a small, knowing smile. "Let's keep going," she said. "We've got more industries to change." With that, Olivia Bennet stepped onto her private jet, bound for her next conquest. Because this was only the beginning. The crumbling of a giant. The boardroom of Apex Airways headquarters had never been so silent. The air was thick with tension, the kind that suffocated even the most powerful men in the room. Richard Calloway, now officially removed as CEO, sat motionless. His face was drained of color, his fingers twitching slightly against the polished mahogany table. Gregory Hawthorne had expected the meeting to be tense, but this was the slow death of a giant, and it was happening in real time. "We need to strategize." Miranda Ellis, Apex's head of PR, began, but she was immediately cut off. "There's no strategy, Miranda." George Lancaster, the company's largest investor, shook his head, his patience threadbare. "Our entire business model has collapsed in less than 48 hours. Do you understand what that means?" Miranda's mouth opened, then closed. Lancaster continued, his voice sharp as a blade. "We are done. Corporate partners are gone. Investors are dumping stock faster than we can issue statements. We don't have weeks to recover. We don't even have days." Gregory looked around the room. The same executives who had once boasted about their brand's dominance were now gripping their armrests, terrified. "How long do we have?" someone finally asked. Lancaster exhaled. "By the end of the month, Apex Airways will be bankrupt." The weight of those words hung in the air, crushing whatever hope remained. Richard Calloway looked up, his voice hoarse. "There's got to be a way to fix this." Lancaster scoffed. "You still don't get it. Olivia Bennett didn't just cancel a contract. She annihilated our reputation, and she did it without saying a single negative word about us. She let the world see who we are. And that's what ruined us." Miranda swallowed hard. There was no way out. Gregory turned toward the screen displaying Apex Airways stock performance. The numbers continued their freefall. There was no saving this company now. Olivia's next move. Meanwhile, across the city, Olivia Bennett wasn't thinking about Apex Airways anymore. As far as she was concerned, their fate had already been decided. She sat at the head of a conference table inside Celestial Airways' executive suite, sipping a cup of coffee as the company's executive board finalized the historic partnership contract. Nathaniel Price sat beside her, reviewing the details. "This is a multi-billion-dollar deal, Olivia." His voice was calm, but there was a glint of admiration in his eyes. "You just made Celestial the #1 airline in corporate luxury travel." Across from them, Malcolm Langley, Celestial Airways CEO, slid the final signed page across the table. "It's official," he said, his voice steady but filled with undeniable satisfaction. "Olivia, you've just rewritten the luxury airline industry." A slow smile spread across her lips. "I told Apex Airways who I was," she murmured. "They just didn't listen." Langley chuckled. "Well, we listened, and trust me, this is just the beginning." Nathaniel leaned back, studying Olivia. "You didn't just win, you set a new precedent. Corporate clients aren't just switching to Celestial because of better service. They're switching because they want to be aligned with you." He was right. The fallout from Apex Airways' collapse had sent shockwaves through the entire business world. Every major corporation was now reevaluating their travel partnerships. Every luxury brand was now reconsidering its approach to exclusivity. And Olivia? She had just proven that power wasn't just about wealth, it was about respect. The unraveling of a legacy. By the end of the week, Apex Airways was no longer a global leader in luxury travel. They were a cautionary tale. Their stock had plunged 38%, triggering a market-wide sell-off. Their corporate clients had abandoned them in droves. Travel influencers, celebrities, and social elites were publicly denouncing them. Their biggest investors had pulled out, leaving them on the verge of financial ruin. And then the final blow came. The Federal Trade Commission officially announced a full-scale investigation into Apex Airways for discriminatory business practices. The news shattered whatever hope remained. By the time the sun rose on Monday morning, Apex Airways had filed for bankruptcy. Their fall had been as swift as it was brutal. They had built their empire on arrogance, and Olivia Bennett had burned it to the ground. The woman who rewrote the rules. As Olivia Bennett stepped out of Celestial Airways headquarters, the city buzzed around her. She exhaled, the crisp air filling her lungs. Nathaniel walked beside her. "The media's calling you a game changer." She smirked. "I don't care what they call me, as long as they remember. Because this wasn't just about one contract. This wasn't even just about one airline. This was about an entire industry realizing that power wasn't just about privilege. It was about who deserved it. And Olivia Bennett. She had just set the new standard." Nathaniel chuckled. "So what's next?" Olivia glanced up at the towering skyline. "We keep going." And with that, she stepped into her black Rolls-Royce, knowing that this was just the beginning of a new era. The empire she built. A new chapter begins. The Rolls-Royce Phantom moved effortlessly through the streets of New York, its engine a quiet hum against the city's electric pulse. Inside, Olivia Bennett sat poised, her eyes scanning through the flurry of emails and notifications on her phone. The world had changed overnight. Apex Airways had officially collapsed. their once pristine empire reduced to ashes. News outlets were calling it the most expensive mistake in luxury travel, but Olivia knew better. It wasn't just a mistake. It was a reckoning. And now, the doors that had once been closed to her were wide open. As her car pulled into the private entrance of Celestial Airways headquarters, Nathaniel Price, her most trusted executive, was already waiting. He adjusted his tie, watching as Olivia stepped out of the car. "Let me guess," she said smoothly. "Another airline wants a meeting." Nathaniel smirked. "5 airlines, actually. And that's just this morning." She exhaled through a quiet chuckle. "I do love a bidding war." They walked through the glass doors, past the swarm of reporters and flashing cameras. Olivia had never been one for public spectacle, but she also understood that power wasn't just about wealth, it was about presence. And today, the world was watching her every move. The birth of a new legacy. Inside the conference room, a collection of some of the most powerful CEOs in aviation sat waiting. Executives from Celestial Airways, Regal Airlines, and Orion International had flown in from across the world for one reason. They wanted Olivia Bennett on their side. Malcolm Langley, the CEO of Celestial Airways, leaned forward. "Olivia, after everything that's happened, we don't just want a partnership with Bennett Global Holdings. We want you to take a seat on our board of directors." A ripple of interest moved through the room. Olivia folded her hands together, considering. A seat on the board meant real influence. It meant shaping the future of an entire industry. Nathaniel shot her a knowing glance. He could already tell she was 10 steps ahead. But before she could respond, another executive from Regal Airlines cleared his throat. "With all due respect," he said, "Celestial is a great airline. But if you want true control, Olivia, you should consider launching your own." The suggestion stilled the room. Silence stretched for several seconds before Malcolm Langley let out a sharp laugh. "I don't think anyone here doubts Olivia's capabilities, but launching an airline from scratch, that would take billions." The Regal Airlines executive shrugged. "So, she already has it." And just like that, the game changed. Nathaniel leaned back, watching Olivia carefully. He saw the glint in her eye. The idea wasn't insane. It was brilliant. She had spent years building an empire in finance, technology, and global investments. She had reshaped industries before. So why not aviation? Nathaniel grinned. "I think they just gave you your next challenge." Olivia exhaled slowly. The idea thrilled her. She turned toward Malcolm. "The board seat is tempting. But let's be honest. Celestial needs me more than I need it. If you want me to commit, I need something bigger." Malcolm's expression tightened. "What are you proposing?" She smiled. "Equity." A collective murmur swept through the executives. Nathaniel chuckled under his breath. Olivia wasn't just negotiating for a seat at the table. She was buying the whole damn table. Rewriting the rules of aviation. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of meetings, negotiations, and power plays. But by the end of it, one thing was clear. Olivia Bennett was no longer just a business mogul. She was a global force. She secured 51% ownership in Celestial Airways, making her the first Black woman to own a majority stake in a global airline. She negotiated new industry policies, ensuring that VIP exclusivity didn't come at the cost of discrimination. She launched Bennett Air, a private aviation service catering to high-net-worth clients, designed to set the gold standard in luxury travel. And the world took notice. Within 3 months, Bennett Air became the most sought-after private airline for CEOs, celebrities, and dignitaries. Within 6 months, Celestial Airways dethroned every competitor in the luxury sector. And within a year, Olivia Bennett was featured on the cover of Time magazine, labeled the woman who rebuilt the skies. But for Olivia, it wasn't just about money. It was about proving a point. The one who never asked for permission. The night before Bennett Air's official launch, Olivia stood on the rooftop of her penthouse. gazing at the illuminated skyline of New York. Nathaniel joined her, handing her a glass of champagne. "You did it." She took a sip, savoring the victory. "No, we did it." He chuckled. "You know, a year ago, you were just walking into an Apex Airways lounge for a flight." She smirked. "And now I own the skies." Nathaniel shook his head in amazement. "They thought they could deny you access. They didn't realize you were never just another passenger." Olivia's expression turned reflective. "They thought power was exclusivity," she murmured. "But real power is influence." Nathaniel raised his glass. "To the woman who never asked for permission." She clinked her glass against his. "To the empire we built." As the city buzzed beneath her, Olivia knew one thing for sure. This was just the beginning. The future she created. A legacy beyond the skies. The launch of Bennett Air wasn't just the birth of a new airline. It was the dawn of a new era in luxury travel. For decades, aviation had been dominated by old money, archaic policies, and gatekeepers who decided who deserved access. But Olivia Bennett had rewritten the script. She had turned exclusion into opportunity, proving that luxury didn't have to be synonymous with arrogance. And now, standing on the stage at Bennett Air's inaugural gala, she was about to unveil something even bigger. Nathaniel Price stood beside her, surveying the crowd of elite investors, world leaders, and celebrities gathered in the grand ballroom of the Bennett Global Headquarters. "Tonight's the night," he murmured. "You ready?" Olivia smirked. "I was born ready." As the lights dimmed, the audience hushed. Olivia stepped forward, the glow of the spotlight catching the diamond-studded pin on her tailored black dress. She placed her hands on the podium, her presence commanding. And then she spoke. The announcement that shook the industry. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the future." The room erupted in applause before settling again. "1 year ago, I stood in a room much like this one, where people thought they could dictate my worth, where they assumed I needed their validation to belong." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. "Today, I stand here owning the very industry they thought I was excluded from." Thunderous applause filled the ballroom. She continued, "But this is bigger than me. It's about building a world where access is based on ability, not appearance, where luxury means exceptional service, not silent exclusion." She paused, letting her words settle. Then she dropped the bombshell. "Tonight, I'm not just unveiling Bennett Air. I'm announcing a new revolution in travel." The screen behind her lit up. The words "Bennett Jet, the future of private aviation," appeared in bold gold letters. The room exploded in excitement. Nathaniel chuckled under his breath. They weren't ready. Bennett Jet will redefine private travel as we know it, offering subscription-based access to private jets for elite business executives, entertainers, and global leaders. This wasn't just an airline. This was a global takeover. Bennett Jet would allow the world's most powerful individuals to travel on demand, removing the unnecessary barriers of traditional chartering and ownership. It was Uber for private aviation, but with the exclusivity of a royal fleet. The deal had already been secured. Bennett Global Holdings had purchased 72 luxury aircraft, and within months, Bennett Jet would be the most sought-after travel network in the world. By the time Olivia stepped off the stage, she had done more than make history. She had redefined the future, the fall of old money. While Olivia soared, her former adversaries were still dealing with the fallout of their failure. Apex Airways had officially ceased operations, its assets liquidated to repay debts. Richard Calloway, its disgraced CEO, had attempted to stage a comeback in the corporate world, but every investor refused to back him. His name was now synonymous with failure, a cautionary tale whispered in boardrooms. But the most poetic justice came when Olivia's investment firm quietly acquired Apex's abandoned flight routes, further cementing her dominance in the market. Her success wasn't just a victory. It was a warning to every corporation that thought power was theirs to control. The rules had changed, And Olivia Bennet was the one writing them now. The power of a name. One night, as Olivia stood on the rooftop of her penthouse, gazing at the city below, Nathaniel joined her, a bottle of $10,000 champagne in hand. "You realize your name is everywhere, right?" he asked, pouring them both a glass. She smirked. That was the point. Nathaniel clinked his glass against hers. "You didn't just build an airline. You built an empire." She took a slow sip, then turned to him. "I built a legacy. Because when the world tried to shut her out, she built her own doors. When they tried to silence her, she made sure her actions spoke louder. And when they underestimated her, she reminded them that power didn't come from privilege. It came from knowing your worth and refusing to accept anything less." Nathaniel smirked. "So, what's next?" Olivia set down her glass, a knowing glint in her eye. "Now, we go global." The empire she built wasn't finished. It was just getting started. A global takeover. The moment Olivia Bennet announced Bennet Jet, the world of private aviation shifted forever. In less than 6 months, it became the gold standard for elite travel, outpacing every private airline and jet charter service in the industry. Memberships were invitation only, creating an exclusive yet inclusive network of powerful executives, entertainers, and dignitaries. Clients could summon a private jet in under 30 minutes from any major city, ensuring seamless, efficient, and luxurious travel. Pilots and staff were trained beyond first-class service standards, creating a travel experience unmatched by anything in the world. For years, the world of luxury aviation had been gatekept by old money, but Olivia broke through the barriers, and then she built her own sky. And now, Bennet Jet was expanding internationally. Her fleet had doubled, private terminals were being built in London, Dubai, Tokyo, and Paris, and high-net-worth individuals were abandoning their personal jets to join Bennet's seamless system. It wasn't just a business success. It was a statement. She had taken an industry that once refused her presence and made herself its undisputed leader. And now, the only question was, what came next? The return to Apex's ruins. Months after Bennet Global Holdings' takeover of Apex Airways' former flight routes, Olivia received an unexpected offer. An anonymous investor had purchased the remaining physical assets of Apex Airways, their old headquarters, their remaining aircraft, and their aviation rights. And they wanted to sell them to her. Nathaniel reviewed the documents and smirked. "This is poetic, Liv. They want to sell you the corpse of the company that tried to push you out." She considered it for a moment, then gave him a simple answer. "Buy it." Nathaniel's eyebrow lifted. Just like that. She turned to face the New York skyline, her voice steady. "I want every trace of their existence wiped from history." Nathaniel chuckled. "That's cold." She gave him a small smirk. "No, that's justice." Apex Airways had spent years believing they were untouchable, but they were forgotten now. Erased. And Olivia Bennet. She was the only name that mattered now. A new era in luxury. A year after the fall of Apex Airways, Olivia stood at the helm of an empire that stretched across multiple industries. Bennet Air was the largest private jet service in the world. Bennet Global Holdings had acquired stakes in multiple luxury brands, from five-star hotels to premium concierge services. She had established $1 billion investment fund dedicated to empowering women and minority entrepreneurs, ensuring that no one ever had to fight for a seat at the table the way she did. And tonight, she was preparing for the largest business gala of the decade, where she would unveil her next move. Nathaniel adjusted his tuxedo as they rode in her Rolls-Royce to the event. "So, are you finally going to tell me what this announcement is?" She smirked. "You'll find out soon enough." They arrived at the grand ballroom, where the world's most powerful individuals were gathered. The media buzzed with anticipation, because when Olivia Bennet spoke, the world listened. She stepped onto the stage, the weight of $1 billion empire behind her, and faced the crowd. Power was never meant to be inherited. It's meant to be built. A hush fell over the room. Tonight, I announced the final step in redefining luxury and access, a new venture that will merge private aviation, premium hospitality, and global networking into something the world has never seen before. The screen behind her lit up with 3 words: BNETT Worldwide, a global empire of luxury and influence. The applause was deafening. Nathaniel turned to her and whispered, "So, what's the endgame?" She smiled, a glint of unstoppable ambition in her eyes. There is no endgame. She had spent her life defying expectations. Now, she was just getting started.